There we go. Okay. Think if I sit down. All right. Awesome. I don't like the comments been over your face, but that work? Am I good? And does it look like the microphone still?
Just a little bit.
Yeah. Has it been live this whole time? All right, ladies and gentlemen, sorry about the technical difficulties. This is Spencer Keck and the Hillbilly Think Tank. Tonight I have Vincent here. I'll let him introduce himself. He is the Kentucky Cowboy, and he's running for office.
Howdy, everybody. My name is Vincent Thompson. I'm running for U.S. Senate, currently for Mitch McConnell's position. Be on the primary in May, and if all things go well, then I might be on the November general election ballot. So good to see everybody. Thanks for having me, Spencer. And
Hey,
looking forward to talking with you. Yep,
heck yeah.
happy to.
So, what we wanted to talk about tonight is the fact that we noticed that Trump is trying to get money printed with his own picture on it. So back in February, Vincent, as you were looking earlier, $250 bill is supposed to have Trump's name on it, according to Congress. They presented the bill, which is titled to amend the Federal Reserve Act to require the Secretary of the Treasury to print $250 Federal Reserve notes featuring a portrait of Donald Trump, and for the purpose of to amend the federal board to be enacted, the Senate and House of Representatives of the United States of America would print this bill. The act may be cited as the Donald J. Trump $250 Bill Act. $250 bill.
He definitely didn't mind seeing it.
I guess yeah. So that's the sign of a good authoritarian dictator, right? They got to see themselves everywhere they go.
It's still following the playbook, from what I can tell.
So, we're looking that he also they have proposed was it a gold coin or is it silver?
A dollar
coin with his picture on it. Also, I guess he thinks he has to be commemorated for the 250th anniversary of our country.
We got rid of the penny because it's too expensive. Of course, it had Lincoln on it. And then we're proposing to have a coin with Trump's face on it.
There we go. So,
and like I told you earlier, like I'm fine with whoever's face is on any currency, as long as some of that currency comes to people that are actually in need of it. You know, as long as it spends, as long as it's put into people's hands that need to make ends meet. And I mean, you and I both know we have many people in Kentucky that have that need.
Like I said, I'm not fine with any dictator having their picture.
I know you're not going to put
nobody that I look up to, and our political history of this great nation has ever asked for their picture to be put on coinage or village.
It's always been a deceased president that's been put on any type of currency that we have.
Yep.
The last time we had a dollar coin currency had JFK's mural on it, and he wasn't alive when that was introduced and put into circulation.
Yeah, and that was definitely to commemorate a great life. So, while this is going on, we've also noticed, we were talking about, since I got an actual cattleman here from Kentucky, we know that they have introduced more money, right, for the
$12 billion into agricultural subsidies, and that's to add on to what was it, 6 or 9 billion previously. I think it was a couple months ago that they announced that
in the big bad ugly bill.
Big beautiful bill.
So, and hey, I want you to actually be able to survive. That's my thing. Is I know your family's been on that farm for how long here in Hardin County?
So I'm second generation on this particular farm, but I'm probably 8th or 9th generation cattleman at minimum. It's probably even further than that, but that's how we've traced our lineage. And I mean, we just always had cattle. My grandpa had cattle in Cecilia. Some of his relatives had cattle, and some of my grandmother's relatives had cattle in, Washington County, and made their way from Maryland. And ever since we've been in this country, we've had some type of livestock.
And for my friends in Sicily that might be watching, he didn't say Sicilia. He was saying Cecilia, Kentucky, just down the road here in Hardin County.
Correct. Cecilia.
So, and how many head of cattle did you say you have?
So we're running probably around 40 head of cattle right now, mama cows, got a few bulls, just sold some calves. I know you and I were talking about it. The market's high right now, not as high as it was, but it's still on paper. It looks like cattlemen are doing pretty well, but the unseen costs, the input costs have not come down any. In fact, they didn't come down the last time we had a surge and then had the market fall down. So
what are some of those costs?
I mean, you've got fertilizer on fields. You got to put in some, warm weather grasses, because the Kentucky summer is not really conducive to our cool weather grasses like fescue and clover and orchard grass, some of the big ones. So you're looking at having to plant some of those. You got diesel fuel costs. You got to, you got to cut the hay. You got to feed the hay. You got to, bush hog around the fence rows so they don't grow up. Cows don't get pink eye.
So you grow alfalfa here? What do you grow for your hay?
A lot of people grow alfalfa. We mainly grow Kentucky 31 fescue, and then orchard grass and clover.
Okay.
Fescue and orchard grass is probably our primary hay stock.
So when did fescue become a big thing for cattle?
I mean, it really took off. I want to say it was in the 50s or 60s. I can't remember, but that was a modified crop, and Kentucky 31 came out of some genetic crossing, and it proved to be a very resilient forage. But it's actually considered an invasive species because it's not a native.
I didn't want to go off on a tangent, but that you just triggered. Where Papa lived, I remember in the Cedar, I think it was the 80s when I was old enough to know what was going on. They talked about putting fescue all over the Kentucky roadsides. I thought that would keep
erosion.
And from having to go mow it all the time too, that was the way it grew. We ended up killing all of our quail.
Exactly.
So
because it's a bunch grass.
Yeah.
Quail need a real thick base grass. So I didn't give a proper introduction myself. So my current political background, I'm the chairman of the Hardin County Conservation District. Currently sit on the Kentucky Association of Conservation District Boards, have some representation on the National Association of Conservation Districts. So we primarily deal with soil conservation and water conservation, but also we work very closely with, fish and wildlife, a lot of the environmental type entities that are trying to make sure that we have clean water, clean soil, and are able to produce the crops and the foodstuffs that most of us like and take for granted. Ribeye steaks, corn, soybeans. We're all involved with the National Resources Conservation Service. They do a lot of stuff with CRP and different types of programs that keep environmental practices on the ground for the majority of acres across the state.
So if I want to come out quail hunt, I probably wouldn't be able to because I don't have any because of fescue. That's
the best. We've actually had a little bit of an explosion of quail these last couple of years because of the way that we've been managing our area. And of course, you got fence rows and places where they can.
You say we, you mean the whole county, or just you?
Myself and my dad, and my mom, who are the owners of the farm that I help operate. But yeah, I think we got about 3 or 4 coveys of quail now. Whereas before we didn't see any for years. So there's some management practices, and then, like I said, with the conservation services, they offer different programs that are strictly for wildlife preservation. They have the habitat, the pollinator habitats for the pollinators, bees, butterflies, things like that. We've encouraged a lot of producers to put in strip grasses where they mow certain areas of it certain times a year to give the bird populations a place to have their nest, and they don't want it disturbed cutting hay on it, so it's got to stay in there longer than most farmers would want to wait for cutting hay. But it's helped with the wildlife population.
So as part of your current political position, are you trying to encourage other folks to do things like that too? Or?
I'm always encouraging folks to do that. That's our primary goal of the conservation district, trying to make sure that we're taking care of those unique Kentucky assets that make Kentucky the beautiful state that most people like to come to. I know everybody maybe moves to the city, but they like to go visit the country and see the green grass and the rolling hills, and
yeah.
So And that's predominantly like, east of Lexington. Once you get into the mountains, there's not as many conservation practices what I'm dealing with, but there are forestry practices and there are water practices. You got a lot of runoff down through there, and we've dealt with some issues with all the floods back in Letcher County. When was that? Back in 2014, or not 2014, 2022, I think.
Yeah.
So,
and well, even recently we've had more flooding too in Eastern Kentucky. That's where half my family was from. So Papa lived out there, and I said that his quail hunting and dove hunting was out there.
Right.
I'm just interested to see. I didn't know that we were on your
they're
property
starting to pick
up. So that's exciting.
Through good management practices. I mean, you have to give them an area where they can be safe, and we got a lot of wildcats, and well, not wildcats, but feral cats that are living off the population. But there's not a lot you can do about that other than
they kill.
They kill a lot.
What do we think killed more, the fescue or those feral cats? I know they're horrible.
Well, feral cats are devastating to the population, but even
any birds,
things like different varmints like possums and raccoons, but those baby quail aren't that big. So I mean, they're pretty quick and easy meals. So that's why they're not surviving.
But they lived around them forever, though.
They have, but they used to have the overgrowth that they can hide under. Right. Whereas a lot of stuff now is being put into fescue, but also grain crops. Like we encourage a lot of cover crops in the wintertime, not only to retain the nitrogen that might be wasted from previous applications throughout the year, but also just to give some ground cover there to prevent erosion, to prevent wildlife from not having some type of habitat to make it through the winter. I mean, there's all sorts of facets that go into it. I mean, I could talk about it for hours.
I'm very interested in that, but if we don't do it tonight, let's do it another time, because I really want to discuss that.
Sure.
So this farm bill, how would it affect conservation and the work that you do?
So
would anything go towards that? Or?
Some of it will go towards it. So the Natural Resources Conservation Service, NRCS, I'll refer to from now on. Our office is actually located in their office here in the county and most counties throughout the state. And they are the ones in charge of administering federal monies that come into the local areas. And then we are responsible for opening up application processes and then divvying out that money to the applications that were approved. It's a pretty stringent application process, but once you get through it the first or second time, it kind of becomes more familiar, and they've got most of that automated online now, so that helps out a little bit. But we also maintain the water quality plan, which every producer that applies for any of these applications, whether it be state cost share, federal cost share, county ag improvement program, which is comes out of the tobacco settlement fund. About half of that tax dollar revenue goes into the state budget, half of it goes into the Kentucky Office of Ag Policy, and then each county is divvied out a certain amount of that money based on what their historical tobacco crop was pre-1999, I think. I can't remember the exact date. But all those, you have to, prove that you're doing some management of your ground and trying to keep water and soil healthy.
That was my, first love of Kentucky was, since I was a knee-high to a grasshopper, going out and fishing in fire ponds with my papa.
Yep.
He was a country doctor. Whenever his patients that he knew were very, poor farmers, couldn't pay him, but hey, just let my grandsons and me come to your farm ponds. These were ponds; they weren't lakes. The guys that had lakes, he made sure that we got to go fishing out there, but he charged them.
Right. There's nothing wrong with having a pay lake.
No. Well, I mean,
make a little bit of income on that.
Their own private.
But some people that are in need of it, like my papa used to hunt squirrels on his farm in Cecilia, and then take them down to the less fortunate folks down in Cecilia, who live down by the railroad tracks, and just help them get a meal every once in a while. It wasn't charity; it was just neighborly.
Yeah. Well, I missed that. That's what made me really fall in love though with Kentucky is that ability to, we had some of the best fishing in really small ponds, but the size of this living room.
We used to have a pond that was probably about 4 times the size of this. It went dry when we got rid of the cattle several years ago. Water lilies broke to the hard pan. But I mean, I've still got people that come up to me that my dad and mom have known for years that used to come out there. And my dad never was one to charge for that. He was like, if you were a friend, he was like, it was something that, brought the social aspect to him where dad always worked all the time. He's on the road going to Louisville for work and then on the farm till after dark. And he didn't get out much to socialize. So when people came there and they were finishing up fishing in the pond, they'd catch him on the driveway out. He'd get a chance to socialize and catch up with old friends. And they tell him about all the fish the whoppers that they caught, or at least the fish tails that they were telling. Yeah. And they stocked a lot of ponds around our area in the western part of the county, with some of our fish. And it was mostly natural. We did some reintroduction of some species to add some diversity to the ponds, but bluegill, crappie, bass, channel cats.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yellow bellies.
You catch a lot of bluegills, some bass, and catfish, and it was awesome. So water. I know that this administration has really scaled back and said it's fine for corporations to basically dump stuff in our water. What do you think about that?
I saw that come about. It was in the early part of this year. They were talking about the waterways of Kentucky. Of course, everybody was up in arms back in the Obama era when they WOTUS, the waters of the U.S. But there was a lot of decent regulation, and they were trying to keep especially in western or eastern Kentucky where they were having the coal mine issues, and that's just part of having coal. Like, I love coal. Coal has kept the lights on for my life and for so many of Kentuckians. That's not to say we don't have room for some green energy projects, but for the most part, even if we're utilizing EVs, like, that's still coming from coal energy.
Yeah.
So,
which is what I use.
That's right. And the best way to have coal, we know that it has toxic elements to it. It's been around so long that we know the ins and outs of it. So we as Kentuckians, we deserve to have that controlled as precisely as possible. Heavy metals, runoff, and because that's going to water supply. We're a karst system. Like, we got all these caves, and we know that, like, whole sinkholes are falling all the time. We're over top of Mammoth Cave. All this water, any runoff, goes directly into our water system. And of course, the ground does a lot of filtration, but then it comes into our local water districts, and they've got to do some treatment of it because there's still stuff in it.
Well, the biggest thing for me, what you're saying there is, I need to know that when I go back and fish in the farm ponds, I'm not eating poison fish, because I like to eat the fish from the farm ponds.
Right.
I don't want heavy metals in those fish that I'm eating, and then find out later, your family got cancer because you like to give your grandkids, the fish that they ate.
And we dealt with that with a lot of stuff, like some of the old herbicides. They were pretty harsh on the environment, but they did a good job of managing the problems at the time. But as we've gone on, even things like Roundup, and the weeds are getting resistant to it because that's just how species evolve.
Yeah.
The seeds that don't get killed, they're going to grow with an immunity to whatever we put on it last time.
Which is something that, I don't know. What do you think? You do any organic farming into that at all, or is that nothing that
we're as close to organic as you can be without being organic?
Okay.
Now, I know that's kind of a buzzword, and it sounds like something that you want to lean towards, but a lot of the organic crop treatments and animal treatments, they're kind of off label because they have some other side effects to it. Now, that's not to say that I'm bashing organic farmers. Any way that you can produce something to sustain yourself and also have a little bit of extra commodity to earn some income, I'm all for that. But it's got to be regulated with the same sincerity as we've done with stuff in the past.
Yeah.
And because it's been such a niche industry, it's probably gotten by with some things that maybe shouldn't have been gotten by with.
Does this farm bill have anything in there for those farmers, though? Or is it ignoring?
There will be some of that divvied out there, but
I've seen that they've usually ignored them.
Since World War II, American agriculture has been geared towards cheap food, which equates to a lot of starch. And corn was that primary resource that we funneled into, and I'm happy for it because I love cornbread. I love, anything corn's in, I love it, even though I can't eat it anymore because I got diverticulitis now. But it still brought me along. It's brought a lot of people in Kentucky along. But that was the focus. That's from my readings and my stuff that I've learned about, that's kind of what helped us win the Cold War was, applying socialist policies towards food production, and we did it better than the USSR.
Yeah.
And that kind of gets swept under the rug of history.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
that's part of the reason that we came out of the Cold War, not just because of our weapons innovation and, our resilience, but because.
Well, I'd say it was Franklin Delano Roosevelt's awesome program that started that had us win the war, helped us to win World War II.
Yep.
Yeah. Actually, I want to do a whole thing on that.
Sure.
If we could do that, like make that one of our episodes. I'm really interested in that. So, get back to the numbers. You say 12 billion, right? What they're talking.
That's the number they're talking right now, and I think the big beautiful bill brought in around 6 or 9 billion. I can't remember. But a lot of people don't know this. I spoke to you about it. I've spoken to other people about it. But my opportunity to dip my toes into politics this time around came from last year when I spent 2 different sessions in D.C. trying to lobby for a farm bill that included money, billions of dollars. I want to say it was upwards of 40 or 50 billion that was allocated in the Infrastructure Relief Act under President Biden that made sure that money was there. And I think
it would have been real money for
it's going to
family farmers.
It would have been the same programs that we have now, but when you have more money, you can take care of those larger scale operations and then still have some left over to divvy out to the smaller scale operations.
Which we need more of.
We need more of, exactly.
Now, I've noticed here, Miss Simmons, she says, I paid for my groceries with the Donald Trump use. He don't need bills. Ha, 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 ha. Yeah, I'd have to agree with you. And, I see one of my students here. Good to see you, Ding. That's my favorite teacher. Hi, Mr. Keck. Hey, how's it going there, Ding? So I want to see, are we going to, I've been talking for days now, this whole Venezuela deal.
Mm-hmm.
We're talking billions and billions of dollars dumping into this. We opened up a base that had been closed for many years now.
You said in Puerto Rico?
In Puerto Rico, yep. Vieques closed while I was still on active duty, and I've been retired, this is my 10th year, since 2014 I've been retired, and it closed, well before I retired. It was open. I've actually visited it once before, but that costs a lot of money, to reopen a base, and we're staging quite a few troops down there right now, and in preparation for kicking off Venezuela.
Well, this whole South American situation, it strikes me, and I have no definite details on this. I'm not privy to the inside information, but this looks like a retaliatory act because the tariff plan against China did not work out. China imported a lot of soy beans from us and a lot of sorghum, a lot of stuff from, Midwestern states. Sorghum too. Mm. And all of those, because we put those heavy tariffs on them, we instigated a trade war that made China start looking to other parts of the world to get it. They were already getting some soybean from Brazil, but now all of the soybean market that we had in America is now South American based because China is by far the largest importer of soybeans.
Brazil, Russia, India, China.
Right.
I always forget the S. But
I can't either.
Yeah, we know Argentina is now, part of that too. So they've got
all that
so much of the soybean
that area. Just because speaking directly from a cattleman, that's going to impact cattle prices. Now, it's not really going to impact the quality of meat that you have because most of the high quality meat that we consume in America comes from American farmers because we do that kind of agriculture better than most areas in the world. Now, where it is going to affect you is your fast food areas because I don't know if everybody remembers the pink slime fiasco of the mid 2000s.
Yeah.
But what happens there is we import, ultra lean, large scale operation produced beef that doesn't have the fat content that Americans are used to. Well, we take the excess fat that American cattle have and we add it to that ultra lean beef. You get, I don't like pink slime because I love McDonald's burgers as well as the next person or a Whopper, but that meat is more than likely not.
For JR Neighbors.
And JR Neighbors have a pretty good burger. Yep. They do have a pretty good burger. Got a good bison burger too. But yeah, I mean,
really good bison.
That's where it's going to affect us. And, I'm not trying to attack our feedlot producers and our large, production facilities that are processing our beef and our meat. But they're a company. They're running as a corporation, and they're looking at the bottom line. And wherever they can put cheaper stuff into it, they're going to do that. And I'm not knocking them for it.
But they don't have the standards of inspection that we have either. Down there. That's good.
They don't have it there. So you can't import cattle out of the U.S. because there's a concern for hoof and mouth disease from all over the world. So we can't bring their livestock into the country, but it's perfectly fine to bring their dead livestock into the country. Even though they don't die, they die here, but they become part of our food source. And hoof and mouth and those kind of things, they're not gonna really trickle down through the system because, like you said, we've got very high standards. You have to have a USDA processor on site to look at any type of meat that's put into the food supply.
Now, I would say we had very high standards, but
they've lowered, but they're still probably the highest in the world.
Yeah, well, we've cut so many inspectors that we need.
That's the problem. Like if you're going to a local abattoir and trying to get something, your own beef or my own beef processed, like it's hard to find somebody that doesn't have a waiting list, a year long, because they have to have the inspector on site for the death of that animal, the processing of the animal, the putting it into the individual steaks, into the burgers. Everything has to have an inspector right there. If you have it USDA packaged. Now, if you just have a USDA facility take care of it, they just are visited once or twice a month by a USDA inspector, make sure that they're following all the guidelines, so that if you have your own livestock processed, you don't have to have it USDA inspected. It just has to be USDA processed.
All right. Well, so that money that we're going to spend, and we are spending on this boondoggle, in Venezuela, I think they should be going to farmers. Yeah, I believe in a strong national defense. I spent, from 1990 to 2014 in the military, and I loved every minute I spent there. Like I said, there's tough times in any job. So,
right.
Yeah. But I don't think we need to create more folks that are disabled from an excursion down there in order to get some oil. And like you said, I agree with you. This is due to the whole tariff war, and let's get a smoke screen.
Yeah, this is a retaliatory act.
Yeah. So, if y'all have any other questions for us, let us know there. Because I think that we're definitely kind of hitting our high points. You got anything else you think you want to let us know about the Hardin County, cattle producing operations and what we need to be able to make it keep being viable for folks out in the
just one
place like Cecilia. And
one piece of information I learned we have our annual cattlemen's banquet every year for the local organization, and we learned through our presentation that Kentucky has the second most registered cattlemen in the U.S., right behind Texas. But that gap is slowly closing, and Kentucky raises the most beef cattle east of the Mississippi. Now you get out west, you get large scale ranches. They're going to have more cattle out there. But Kentucky is we're prime cattle country, and we've turned into prime corn and soy country. Western Kentucky's got a lot of flat, fertile ground, and we've been able to, I'm not going to knock GMOs because I used to sell them for a company, and those GMOs have allowed us to grow more in smaller areas, and a lot of farmers around here have reaped the benefits, and I know many of them personally. I've got family in some of them, so I'm glad they've been able to make a living doing that. But some of that money does need to go down to some smaller scale producers, and we've always advocated for a lot of. I know I was talking to your daughter about urban agriculture. We've been having to push for that because Kentucky is rapidly urbanizing. Like Hardin County, that's probably the biggest issue facing us in this county is urbanization of prime farm ground.
Yeah.
And I understand the need for it. I understand we need the jobs, and the population in the restaurants coming in to feed the population. They generate tax revenue. I get all that, but I know Kentucky Farm Bureau is having a big push right now on protecting generational farm owners and trying to keep it in the family's hands.
Well, I'd like to have whole episode on that.
Sure.
That's what I'm extremely interested in. Whatever I can do to see, that come to fruition, where we can see if we, you are elected. I'd love to see you push for that, because to me, that's, we were losing so many small towns across America are ghost towns now.
I mean, that was a prime candidate on why the opioid epidemic took off in these areas, because, there's a song by Old Crow Medicine Show called "We Don't Grow Tobacco No More," and it talks about how that tobacco money was people's annual farm payment, and when that went away, that was part of why the CAPE program was established, to get people earning ag dollars where once tobacco was the cash crop, and we've done a good job of it.
So that leads me to another thing that we could probably either do a whole episode on, or make part of the one that I want to do on, how we get small farmers back. Right. But what do you think of Mitch McConnell deciding here in his last, hoorah, to sack the hemp production here in Kentucky? Because I number one, as a vet, I like everyone. There's this company here in Kentucky called Cornbread. They make hemp elixir, 5%, I think, THC.
Right.
To me, it seems to be far healthier than my favorite beverage, which I finished earlier, the brown liquor, which my other Kentucky favorite. But I mean, you talk about tobacco's gone away, but before, years ago, hemp was one of Kentucky's. It was big cash crop. Was it ever bigger than tobacco, or were they just about side by side at one point?
Probably side by side, but the reason that hemp was such a large market was because we utilized it from everything from rope to clothing to, like, probably small towns had some medicinal shops that utilized that. And we know the health benefits of it.
Yeah.
We know that it can be regulated. We even know that we can grow it here. The problem was that we didn't have the infrastructure that other countries like Canada had, that were used to dealing with hemp being a hard product to process. And there's different, you have seed oil hemp, you have fiber hemp. And I was very enthusiastic about that when it all came about. And I was trying to apply for that growth permit.
Mm-hmm.
But I know people that grew it, and they were trying to run it like a corn or a
county
soybean. Well, all over the state. But I knew people that, kind of went at it from a corn and soybean mentality, and it's not the same crop. It's not an easy crop to take care of. It's not an easy crop to process. You got to have a process.
I thought it was like a weed. That's what we call it, weed.
Mm-hmm.
It's not. Not as easy.
It grows like a weed, because it'll grow almost anywhere.
Uh-huh.
That's another good thing about it
That's
too.
what I understand. And that's why it was Eastern Kentucky popular, and did so.
Well, and that's why marijuana took off so well, because it's a derivative of hemp with just higher THC content. And the hemp that we were producing, it was not in danger of becoming a THC substitute. It was going into mostly lotions and some fiber. And we've invested a lot of money in the state of Kentucky to have that program off the ground.
And now, I mean, the elixirs.
Yeah.
I mean, for people that, like myself, that are in chronic pain, from, our combat experience, just wear and tear in the military, right. That's, to me, it's better for my kidneys and probably for my liver than
that cannabinoid liquor is influential on so many people's livelihoods, being able to get up. I mean, you take the benefits with cancer. I had a brother-in-law who had to utilize it years ago, and he had to utilize it because his cancer was just eating his body from the inside out. And you take, like you said, with just small regular injuries, that every one of us are going to, if we're fortunate enough to make it to tomorrow, we're going to encounter those injuries. Yep. We need something to deal with that. And my suspicion is there's, some dirty money at play in that coming about. Because I think
anyone with half a brain has to know. I mean, Jesus Christ, I love bourbon, but somebody, I don't know which industry it was that, which liquor industry surely probably didn't like the fact that, hey, they're competing with them. But
that's a good thing about the bourbon industry. They share everything amongst each other. Like if Jim Beam has an innovation, like, they share it with everybody, because they know what's good for their neighbor is good for them. And that's the mentality that America used to kind of hold on to, and we seem to be losing that. We're competing against our neighbor rather than uplifting everyone around us so that there's benefit for all.
Well, would this have been a deal if we hadn't scuttled our bourbon boom with this trade war, with this
Right.
tariff.
China was the number
You know,
one importer of
would they have
bourbon.
ever said, "Hey, don't let hemp take over"? Would that have been a thing? That's another question that I have to ask. Because I'm pretty sure that it would have been, "Hey, there's room for everybody to grow. We're doing great. Come on in."
It makes for a good rotational crop.
Yeah.
Because you don't want to grow corn after corn year after year.
Yeah.
It depletes the soil.
Yeah.
You need something in between there. That's why they grow soybeans. But how's that going to impact our rotational crop growth now that people are probably not going to be growing as many soybeans next year?
Yeah. And then now we're just going to scuttle the hemp growth. What else? No more tobacco, no more soy, no more hemp. What would we be left with?
You have corn and cattle.
And corn is so water intensive.
Right.
Sorghum's not. Do you grow any sorghum?
We haven't now.
No.
I got some friends that grow it though, just for small scale operations.
That's so, it takes so much less water to grow, and it's so healthy for us.
It takes less herbicide too because
have you ever eaten it as a popcorn?
What's that?
Actually, not as a popcorn. At popped sorghum.
I haven't had pop sorghum. I love sorghum molasses.
Go grab the bag. Go grab that bag. So, growing up, my Mamaw started a sorghum festival in Eastern Kentucky in Morgan County. Actually, I think they just had their 50th anniversary not too many years ago. But that I grew up, hey, the mules would grind it, we'd go out and get it hot on the vat and just start, that became something I really enjoyed in my palate. And I thought it was something that had to have been a Kentucky thing since that's what I knew of it. Wasn't until teaching middle school I just learned that, what country it came from originally?
Somewhere in Africa, wasn't it?
Yeah, Sudan and Ethiopia. So when I was teaching a story where these kids are eating sorghum meal, like we eat oatmeal, I'm like, what? And I found online pop sorghum. I'll find it here in the cupboard here in a second. My niece can't find it, but it's tasty, just as good as popcorn. And I'm wondering if it maybe doesn't
affect diverticulitis.
It doesn't affect the diverticulitis because it doesn't have the husk.
I might start growing some sorghum then for popping.
Yeah,
I love popcorn.
So I mean, I knew that it was great for our syrup, or sorghum syrup, but I didn't realize that it's also the grain itself is good for meal. Like
they utilize it for warm season grasses. We have sorghum Sudan grass, which is a hybrid it has a growing season is kind of perfectly fit for Kentucky summers.
Man,
but it's an annual, so you got to replant it every year. So that's another input cost.
That's awesome. Well, guys, we've been at it now for about 40 minutes. I want to do another one if you don't mind. We can either do it at your place or mine, but
sure.
Let's talk about how to get small farmers the Farm Bureau initiative.
They're working on trying to get some stuff situated for land transfer.
Talk about that. And so how much land do you require, or are you running your 40 head on?
We run on about 151 acres in Randyville, and then of course sometimes we have to buy some hay from off farm. But I got a lot of family, a lot of friends that have some available, so it's another good way to just keep neighborly relations. If I have extra hay, I offer to them. If they have extra hay, they offer to me. That's
awesome, man. That's just says something about our amount of water we've got naturally here, right?
Even when we have a drought, it's just a matter of getting to the water. We got a large aquifer system below us, but we want to make sure that water is protected and as clean as possible. And
that's the deal.
Brought up
to go into those animals if it's got heavy metals in it. Won't just be the fish.
Nope.
They got heavy metals in it, be the cows too. Yeah. So I've seen some sad documentaries on what really that can do to cattle. And hopefully you never had a problem.
No, not so far. I mean, we've got a very good well, and we've had ponds for years. And of course, they're trying to pull away from that due to some waste disposal issues with cattle, and we've fenced off some of those and put in some programs for some waterers, some of the conservation programs I was talking about. Just trying to have some firsthand knowledge of what I'm working with and able to help me talk to the public a little more.
That's awesome. Well, yeah. Anything else you want to?
I'm just going to let everybody know, right now, you can find my campaign. I got a Facebook page. It's Vincent Thompson for U.S. Senate. It's attached to my public, personal profile. So if you want to reach out to me, happy to speak with you. Appreciate the support, and anything you want to get in touch with me about, feel free to get in touch with me through there.
Absolutely. And again, I'm running for Hardin County Magistrate, District 3 here in Hardin County. And love to meet you. I'm going to be at the Cosmic Golf tomorrow night. They're going to have a civics trivia night. Yeah. So
I got invited to that by, what's her name?
Jessica
Whitlock,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
She invited me to
put
it.
it together, and yeah.
It was on the tip of my tongue, Jessica. So if you see this, sorry about that.
So all the magistrate candidates are going to be out there. We're going to be introducing ourselves, playing as a team, trivia. So I'd love to have you. And as I close again, remember, we are our brother's keeper. We're our sister's keeper. And, we just got to love our neighbors as ourselves. Everything we do is community, right? We can't, there's no John Wayne right on the,
no man's an island.
No man's an island. No matter what, they want to tell us, we all are in this together. But we definitely got to get together as hardworking, working class Americans, and bring it back the way we should be for, help each other out.
That's the plan.
Yep. So y'all have a good night. God bless your corazon.